Builder fam, we're here with Sean Du Fosse, good friend of mine. The dude has been in the solar game since longer than I realized there was a solar game, a wealth of knowledge. I hope you enjoy it. I enjoy talking to him. Welcome to Atomic Construction. Thanks for coming on, dude. You are a pillar in the solar industry, so I want to pick your brain on that. We'll talk all things solar. I want to hear your builder story. I want to talk about core builders, and then I really want to dive into the solar coaster, particularly the latest news. And so with that, I would just, Sean Du Fosse, from birth to now, tell me your builder story. Like, how did you end up here? A man of many strengths and accolades.
Yeah,
how do we get to this day?
I don't know about a pillar, but I'm third generation contractor out of California. I grew up, as a son of a contractor, our house was always under construction, because a contractor never finishes his own job. So I grew up on a construction site basically. And then on the weekends, my dad would take me into the shop and I would sort through, job site returns. And at that time, they didn't throw anything away. I mean, it was like a historical society type of construction equipment in that shop, so I sorted a lot of nuts and bolts. He's a mechanical contractor, so I, sorted all the copper fittings, and then we also had an HVAC division. We did seismic and whatnot. So it's just everything. It was nonstop. I started when I was, 8 or 9. I think he brought me into the shop. I mean, I'd gone in with him to work before, but at that time, we would just go into the office and make copies of stupid things and, play with highlighters and staplers. And, me and my sister just be running around. Because back then, there was only a fax machine and a phone line. So if you had a bid going out, you were at the office. So he had a couch in his office. So I grew up where, we knew when dad wasn't coming home, there was a bid that was going out. And that was and my dad was the chief estimating guy at the company he was at. So he was never home and he worked crazy hours.
So your dad was did you say California? Were you born and raised in
California? Yep.
Okay. And so was he at a union shop or non-union shop?
Union. He was union. So I grew up, going to all the barbecues, and then, we had the pipe fitters union, the plumbers union, the sheet metal workers union. I think at a point they had operators union. So, as a kid growing up and that, I would go to all the union barbecues, because they'd invite the various, leaders from the union contractors. So, and I got to tell you, the sheet metal union, they had the best barbecue. I mean, it was like, it was like a carnival. They really knew how to throw a party. And so, all union.
So you grow up going, so dad is a hired hand. He's a hired gun. He's not running his own, or he was an owner, part owner?
He was an owner. The name of the company was Scott Company, and they were the old school, everybody was an owner. I mean, the harder you work, the bigger bonuses you got, the more ownership opportunity you got. I mean, he came from nothing. They hired him out of school, and he just worked. And as he did more and made more, he got more. The American dream, exactly how it's supposed to be.
And so you grow up going to the mechanic. So you're going to Scott Company, and then did you go to school or you skipped school or college?
No, I went to. So my dad went to Cal Poly. I went to Cal Poly. So my dad was, he took refrigeration at Cal Poly, and then Scott Company hired him. And, they were the bright green trucks. If anybody from the Bay Area, you couldn't miss them. Like they were the bright kind of almost like pea green trucks, and they were everywhere. Scott Company was the biggest. They would do, process piping. They do wastewater treatment plants. They do commercial, industrial. They were doing, they got into everything.
Got it. And so Dad went for I should know, Cal Poly. Is that a trade school or?
It's a polytechnic.
Okay. Technical school.
So it is a technical school. And I'm a huge Cal Poly fan, and they say learn by doing, and that is no joke. We had full blown labs. I mean, I welded in college. I ran lathes and mills in college. We had a packaging class where we learned how to, form plastic and blow molding. And I mean, we had machines from every kind of industry, and that was in our lab. And so we would learn by doing. It was the perfect school for me. I loved it.
That's awesome, man. So you graduate, what year we graduate?
96.
96. I was trying to be favorable, Sean. 96. And then what takes you to, so I know you're running your own show, you're working for some big money. I want to get to that point, but what steps along the way? And a lot of our audience are going to be people that want to be where you are. They want to be running their own business someday.
So I went into aerospace right out of college because, I had a manufacturing background. And to be honest with you, I was like, I am not going into construction, and I am definitely not going to go into mechanical contracting because, all through high school, we had to go fix jobs. And it's like, people don't get it that like my dad and his partners, and I mean, and I could go in, but they started this company, or they bought this company called Marylich Mechanical. But they'd be in on having to go in on the weekends and fix things. And so I'd get pulled into that sometimes. And anyway, I just was like, I am not doing that. I ended up kind of not liking construction at that point, just because it just seemed like not a good life choice, like super long hours, super high stress, employees calling you in the middle. Like my dad had to go bail people out of jail. Like, I mean, like legit stuff, but I'm like, this is too much. And so, I had a chance to go work for a great company in Oregon called Precision Cast Parts. And they had a management development program that they had, copied off of General Electric. And so, when I interviewed for the job, I was like, this is amazing. And I'm interested in, aviation and, the aeronautical stuff. And so, so I went to go work for them, got to work on a couple of good programs. One of the programs was the Joint Strike Fighter project. And we were making parts for that program back in 96. So those are the F-35s, like that's the different JSFs that you see now, that are currently being deployed. So anyway, it was, aerospace was awesome. I'm a big fan of quality control. I took a lot of quality classes in college. And so, I love process and, employee development and all that stuff. So it was a great fit. The issue that we bumped into living in Oregon is that it rains a lot. I mean, and my wife at the time, it just got really depressing. We were doing light box therapy. We had a membership to sun tanning beds, and I'd get her out of town every weekend. Alaska Airlines was running a $49 flight package, so it's like I did everything in my power to try to make Oregon work. And ultimately, we needed to leave Oregon. And so, my wife worked for Intel at the time. They have a big facility in Oregon. She was able to transfer. And so I took a job at Applied Materials, which is a semiconductor equipment manufacturing company. And at the time they were blowing up and, the whole nine. So we were working out of Santa Clara. So I got and again, what's funny is they pulled me into facilities. And so I was doing like tenant improvement projects for our equipment. And the way that Applied Materials organized their buildings is every group was kind of a tenant, and we paid rent. And if we needed to improve the space to be able to work with our equipment, well, that was on us. So I was a facilities project manager doing TI projects for all of our, R&D equipment spaces. And, we'd have to do, they called them marathons, or anyway, we have to do these long-term tests to prove out that our equipment met the requirements for the customer. And
what's TI? So, I've heard that before. What's TI?
It's tenant improvement. Yes.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
So anyway, we did that, and then let's see. I ended up going and working with Marylich Mechanical. They wanted to open up a new facility in Sacramento, and we could not afford to buy a house in the Bay Area, not anywhere. There was not a space, not an area anywhere in the Bay Area where we could afford on a dual income to buy a house. And so Sacramento, had a lot of opportunities for home ownership. And I had a bunch of buddies that lived in Sacramento. And so we needed to get a new shop to do a bunch of work that Marylich had won in the Sacramento area. And so they said, Sean, will you help us open up this new facility? And so I did. And we opened up the new facility, hired a bunch of people. I brought in my process, background. We put some processes in place. And then that's when my old college fraternity brother hit me up and he said, hey, I've got this job at the solar company. This was in 2007. And he said, they need a lot of help. You'd be the perfect guy. It's a lot of opportunity, all this upside. It's the wave of the future. Like, would you be interested? And we need to open up a new shop in Sacramento. And I said, oh, I know exactly what we need to do. Met with the owner. They actually, gave me some ownership in the company. And, we went and opened up a new facility, and I brought on a bunch of the guys that I had hired at Marylich. I took them with me to SPG, and then we just got after it at SPG.
So this was a college buddy that said, I want to start. Is this your foray into solar? SPG is the...
Yeah. Yeah. So my college fraternity brother, Mike Frankel, he hits me up and he says, hey, we need help. At the very least, can you help us? But, or would you consider a job? And I said, yeah, I'll help you no matter what. But yeah, I'd like to talk to you about a job, because, I'm a passionate guy. I like to love what I'm doing. I'm not a big fan of just liking what I'm doing, liking what I'm doing. I want to love it. So anyway, I talked to Dan Thompson, who is an absolute innovator. Like, he's one of those guys that in our industry, he doesn't get talked about enough. At the time, he was a guy who got it. He was one of the guys that, private equity came in and bought his company. And, we did the first floating solar. If you look online now, you see all these floating solar arrays. Like, we were Dan Thompson and this guy named Monty Mullins, along with Mike Frankel. And there was another Emil Johansson, some great engineers. They came up with the first floating solar array. And that first solar array is at Farniente Winery in Napa. And it's a great story, but they came up with the first monitoring, string level monitoring, which is what everybody does now. Like SPG pioneered that. They came up with the single axis tracker design that at the time competed with the only other real single axis tracker that was out there. We had a adjustable tilt ground mount, which you don't see anybody doing it nowadays, but you could seasonally adjust it to maximize your production. And we used to sell a lot of ATGM. And you don't see people doing that anymore, but this was like it was like an entrepreneur's dream at SPG. Always new ideas, new opportunities. I loved working there.
When was this all taken? Because so you're talking like this is like your ground floor of the solar coaster. Like this is before,
07. Well, but I'll tell you, I mean, there's guys that I'm still in contact with that were at SPG for 3 or 4 years before me.
So this has been running since early 2000s, because I was somewhat late to the game, and I think I was I don't want to say late, but like it's really taken off in the last 4 years, it feels like for me. But I'd be more curious kind of if you charted the journey 2007. So you guys are innovating. It's all like fresh and new. It's kind of cutting edge. I don't think it's got a foothold national when you start. Maybe it does. Like
it was, everything was driven by incentives. And so the ITCs, which is investment tax credit, there was always the tinkering with ITCs. Like, so we always had this overarching, ITC program that would help stimulate the adoption of solar. And that's something that they're actually, but we've had ITCs unwound before. And then they kind of see the light and then they come back. This last program that, the Biden administration pushed through with the IRA, it really took it to the next level in terms of opportunity. And now Trump and the Trump administration is like unwinding it all the way. But again, haven't seen the final text on exactly what that's going to look like, but they're swinging it. As far as Biden went in one direction, Trump administration is swinging it the other direction.
Sorry, they call it the solar coaster. It's up and down. It's all around. It kind of pauses. It waits. It's all government. I mean, but there's some real money. Like there's some real big people in this industry. So what happened? Like, I mean, I think
there's publicly traded companies you can go look at right now. Next Tracker is one of them. Array Technologies, Shoals. Those are very viable, and they sell products and they enable, for businesses and utilities and people to take advantage of, solar generation. And then there's the companies I call them Fatumi, like fake it till you make it. And that's one of the issues that I see that is hurting us right now is there's been too many companies that were faking it. And those are being pointed to as why we don't need to subsidize that industry anymore, because look at they can point to a bunch of different things that, and they're not wrong. I mean, one of the craziest things that I saw, and my cousin was on the project, but Solyndra, this was during the Obama administration, Solyndra got a $550 million, government guaranteed loan. And we all knew in the industry that their technology was faulty, that it wasn't proven, that it was like I mean, everybody knew. If somebody says they didn't know, then they weren't really educated on our industry. But we all knew cylinder modules were faulty and suspect. And they had a very interesting application, which is, I mean, again, at SPG we installed some of it, but we knew that like it fell off the degradation curve in a matter of years, and that in some instances we had to go replace it all with like their new generation, and then that stuff was failing. So, but where I was telling you, my cousin was on the project. They got a $550 million loan. This was a few months, 4 months before Cylinder actually went fully bankrupt, but they were told to run extra shifts, all this overtime to get this manufacturing facility done that they actually never moved into. It was almost like everybody involved knew they were going bankrupt. So they spent all the money. I mean, his company made great money working all that overtime, but taxpayer dollars, and it all went to nothing. Like that Tesla, I think, picked up, or either Toyota or Tesla, somebody picked up the building, but like Cylinder never actually made any products. They spent the $550 million on construction on a job. And so that's one of these white elephants that, everybody knows that story, and it's a terrible story. And so I think that's one of the reasons why, we're getting hit as hard as we are, but nobody wants to say that the fake it till you make it companies like hurt our industry. But I believe, because there's a lot of great companies. I mean, huge contractors, Blattner, Mortensen, McCarthy. I mean, brick and mortar, Moss, Swinnerton, that's now Solve, great Rosendin Electric, Cupertino Electric. I mean, you could go on and on. These are great companies that add a lot of value, and that they have great employees, and they take really good care of their employees, and they do a lot of good. Every one of those companies is going to be impacted by the new legislation that's being approved right now.
And is it because like we're the last to know, and so I'm very we just come in and put the fence up at the backside. You're a key element to the supply chain, but and I haven't been watching long enough. We only really got into it maybe 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there, so 6 years, 7. But the ITCs go away, or they almost, let's say they kill them. Does the industry die entirely, or just slows down drastically near death? Like, are they like, they've got these projects. I think we talked, there's like 2-3 year run that they're still going to be building them, but is it waiting for a resurgence?
So they're unwinding. There's going to be a process to the unwinding. The industry's not going to die. Will it slow it down? Sure. I mean, there's some fun facts. So right now, if you went to go buy a solar module in the United States, you're going to pay between 25 and 30 cents a watt. All right. Which when I started in 2007, it was $4 a watt. And the incentives and certain applications, distributed generation, behind the meter, blah, 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 you can make financial cases for things to work in terms of generating your own power. With the ITCs the way it was during the IRA, that made the math much easier, right? So modules are at 25, 30 cents a watt right now. Well, in China, right now, if you and I were in China, we wanted to go buy modules, in China, they're 8 cents a watt. They're 8 cents.
Yeah.
If we could get the kind of pricing that they're getting in China here, again, everybody's got to take their little cut. You have a tariff, this, that, and the other. But I mean, if we can get modules here in that like 10, 12, 14 cents a watt, that opens the doors, because guess what? The cost per kilowatt hour from the utilities is only going up. Like their cost to generate is only going up. whereas solar, I call it the great enabler. It enables them to kind of mitigate some of that upward pressure. So like in my utility area right now, I'm in the Sacramento utility district. We call it SMUD. They're doing a 400 megawatt project right now as we speak, as a DG, to help support the load. And so it makes sense for the utilities. Now, is it not going to make sense when the ITCs go away? I'm not sure. I know it's going to be harder for it to make sense, but again, I don't think it's going to die. I just think things are going to change. But the other part of it is we still got a couple more years, because these projects, they call it safe harbor. They're not just immediately unwinding it. It's going to unwind and there'll be a step down. Like they're not going to burn all these developers, but it's going to put some stress on some things. But before we go deep into that, like I did want to say, so, we were at SPG and, the private equity firm that bought a large percentage of SPG was Global Environmental Fund, GEF. There was a little bit of turmoil with Dan Thompson and GEF, and so they replaced Dan as the CEO, and they brought in a new CEO, a guy named Tom Rooney, who was, I ended up really, really, connecting with this guy. And he's just a great guy, understood how to launch, a products company, but also as being an integrator where we were selling, a service, an engineered solution to customers. He came out of the gate. He was on CNBC. He was taking advantage of all this hard work that had been done before him. He really invested heavily into additional, like developing the floating solar. He also he loved the fact that we had our single axis tracker, and we were doing improvements to that. But yeah, they ended up. He ended up having some sort of fallout with the board. I had heard that we had been somebody had offered to buy the company, and it was a really good offer. And I don't know if that had something to do with it, where they had a disagreement on what our valuation was or whatnot. But, Tom parted ways. And once that happened, that was kind of like, there's been a lot of chaos in just the couple of years I've been here. I think it's time for us to start our own business. And so my partner, Mike, and I, we left SPG and started PV Hardware. And that, really was like kind of a dream activity for us. It's like we'd been talking about it for years. I mean, I bought the PV Hardware name, probably within the first 6 months of working at SPG, because I knew someday we would have our own business. Because
make sure the listener, because I don't know either. So SPG is, what does that stand for?
Well, that's a funny question. SPG is the official name, but it was SunPower Geothermal. And so what happened is SunPower, which is they were publicly traded, they had to buy the name off of Dan, and Dan was able to just keep it as SPG, and SunPower took the name.
And so I'm going to back up because a lot of our audience won't be in the solar world. So let's break. So solar, is mostly EPC driven. So the developers go out there, and then you've got utility, which is big, and then community, which is small. How many acres about for a 4 to 6 megawatt is?
That's like a loaded question, but I mean,
we're talking like,
I mean, you with
acres?
fire roads and for 5 megawatts, it's probably, you know what? I don't even know now. Maybe an acre, a megawatt ish.
An acre. So 5, 6, let's say somewhere sub 10 acres. And then we've got these utility that's like hundreds, thousands of acres, up like 500 megawatts. So we've got scale projects ranging in size from 5 acres to what, 500? Is that a big site, or are they up to 1,000 acres? Do you know? I don't know offhand.
I don't know. Like none of these sites are like, all the sites nowadays. None of them are like contiguous. It's almost like, there's a project we're getting ready to start right now. It's a 93 megawatt project, but when you look at the layout, it's actually like 12 different projects. It's not all contiguous. They're all kind of around, across this street, go down that road, go across that bridge, cut over there. There's not a road that interconnects them all. So you'll have these little islands, and that's kind of what I'm seeing now. I mean, you feel lucky if you get put on a project and it's contiguous, where you can come on site and stay on site to get everywhere you need to go. You're lucky, because I'm not seeing that.
And generally the trades are, you've got your civil making your roads, you've got your mechanical drive and pile, and then you've got your racking and paneling, right? Pretty much a pretty simple. And then you got us, the fencers.
And you've got your electricians, you got your medium voltage and your high voltage.
Yep.
But yeah, civil, the mechanical guys typically, take care of foundations and racking and modules. But sometimes you see a specific sub come in just for foundations. Another sub does purely the racking, and another sub comes in and puts in all the modules. And
then on your side, you're like the solar pile. I think of you as the pile driving master.
Yeah, we prefer foundations. Anything having to do with foundations, and that's been like my passion, since I got into this, is that, it's not everybody can go just look at the documents and know how to do the project. I mean, anybody can go get started, but in a lot of instances, based on the geotechnical report, based on the pile load testing plan, based on the interactions with the structural engineer record, blah, blah, like all these things have an impact on how you approach the site. And so that's something that, from a PV hardware standpoint, we wanted to work with our customers and help them drive a solution and do the value engineering to come up with the lowest cost, most predictable foundation solution. And
that's what PV system. So SPG, were you guys an EPC, or you guys were a foundation? Were you guys doing everything?
No, SPG, we were a full-on integrator. So back in those days, you had to do everything. You had to put in your own foundations. You had to have your own electricians. You had to do your own racking. You had to procure your own modules. You had to go through all that engineering and permitting process through all the AHJs. And that's why Dan was like so fed up. He's like, I'm tired of helping all these other companies on how to do their business. I'll just make my own racking. I'll go buy my modules direct from the manufacturer. I don't need to go through, because back then there was middlemen. Everybody takes a slice. So Dan realized, like, I'm just we'll do this on our own. We'll do it better. And
you guys were supplying it all, installing it all.
Yes.
And then, so that's SPG. And then you were getting excited telling me about, you guys start PV. Is that PV? Then you go to PV?
Yeah. Once Tom Rooney was once they removed Tom Rooney, who I thought was the best, you got to realize, like, Mike and I each had ownership in the company. And so a buyout would have been very beneficial to us. Once they got rid of Rooney, I'm like, this investment, I got $1,000 for my ownership when I finally left. It was like, nobody's going to buy this. Yeah, like, that was our best chance. So I also said, we can't afford to waste any more time, because there was a huge opportunity right then. And I'll go into a little bit of detail. Like, before I left, this guy named Chris Robine he was our CFO, and he became the acting CEO. Chris came to me and he said, hey, we had a meeting at the board. They want us to redo our single axis tracker. They've got $1 million for you to go redo our single axis tracker. And at the time, I had a bunch of great ideas, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do this for them and then get in a potential intellectual property fight of like, what's this idea? What's that idea? Because I had not worked on any of these ideas while I was at work. It's just, you could see the way the market was going and where we would need to be to have the success that, again, I completely underestimated the fact that there's 2 publicly traded single axis tracker companies right now that have multi-billion-dollar valuations. I knew that it was going to be a good market. I had no idea it would have been that market. I mean, there's 2.
And so you had the idea to move the system from kind of a double joint. I'm not sure what the opposite of PV is. So we just knew where it was going and what we were going to need to do. And so instead of taking the $1 million and going and doing that work, Mike and I left and we started PV Hardware. Now, an interesting story, and you can look this up, but there was a guy that was there who had some product development experience. His name's Alex Au. Alex Au took the $1 million and redesigned the SPG tracker. He completely revamped it, came up with a bunch of new ideas, really good ideas. Alex Au is the co-founder of NextTracker. Mm. Because after Alex Au left SPG, he went and founded NextTracker, which is kind of interesting, don't you think? So you guys
very interesting.
You guys went to do the same thing?
Yeah, but we left a year earlier. And yeah, we were developing a single axis tracker. We had developed a fixed tilt system that we sold. Like we had a multi-million-dollar order 6 weeks after we started PV Hardware.
And that was, so you guys you're designing the system, and then so did that not take, or it did take? I'm making myself ignorant here. So you guys were on the supply side, like, did you design the system and like integrated all the parts, and you guys were you were selling?
Yeah.
And is that still in existence? PV?
Yeah, PV Hardware did $1.9 billion last year.
And so are you a founder of that then?
Yes, I am the founder, but I sold out before that.
Have you told me that story? Or I don't think you've told me that story.
I actually, you know what? I was doing some research because I'm just like, I wonder what kind of revenue they're doing. And they $1.9 billion and $121 million of profit.
So you founded that company.
That is I came up with that name. Mike and I were sitting at a bar in San Francisco at InterSolar, which was the best solar show. We were at Green's on Polk, I think it was. It's a sports bar. And we were kind of spitballing names. And I'm like, hey, what about PV Hardware? He's like, that's a good name. So I wrote it down. And then that night I went on and I bought the domain. And yeah.
What's the year? What's the year when you guys leave SPG and you launch into PV hardware?
Yeah, I think I bought the name in 07, maybe 08.
Okay, so pretty early.
We bought it way before. I mean, we were just, dream weaving. That's what you do.
And so you ideate, you build it, you make it, and now you got to take me to your. I didn't know that. I don't even know this. So then, how long after? Why did you sell? Why aren't you a billionaire? Well, obviously, I mean, yeah. Where does the exit come in? This is fascinating.
It's I don't know how many partnerships you've been a part of, but
marriage is enough. Marriage is enough for everybody to know what you're talking about.
so anyway, I've been married for a really long time, so I know how to be successful in marriage. But yeah, with PV hardware, there's a certain way that Mike and I like to do business, and our partners have like kind of a different mentality when it comes to business. And I think part of it is that, we are, Mike and I are super loyal. We'll do whatever we have to do to take care of our customers. We try to avoid, fighting and arguing. We like to discuss things and plan for contingencies up front so that to minimize the negativity. And, our partners have like a different, more, I'd say probably a traditional business attitude. And so it just didn't work. And at a certain point, we could have just wrote it out. And yeah, I'd probably have a lot more money now. And, we could have but I would have been miserable. Like that was my big thing is that, I work, because I'd like to make money, but I also work because it's a passion of mine. And if you take the passion out of it, then I'm like not interested. And then if you throw some negativity in there, now I'm really, life's too short. And so really, I'll tell you, so my dad, he worked so hard. I mean, in terms of a work ethic, like he would sleep in his office. Like he wouldn't come home on Saturday nights, and he'd come home Sunday morning, and whatever. He was gone a lot, working late a lot, and so he retired after my mom passed away, and then he died of a heart attack, and it just hit me. Luckily, he worked with everybody that he loved. Like if his celebration of life was like insane. I mean, the amount of people that came to enjoy it. But it showed me, I'm like, dude, who's going to come to my, when I die, who's going to come to my celebration of life? Like what, he worked with all these people that were loyal to him, and, families had, sent their kids to school and all this. And I'm like, I'm miserable right now with my job. Like, why am I'm just worried about losing out on some money. Like life's too short. I need to be happy. And so, I'll tell you, one of the good things is when we did come up with the divorce, it was solid. Like they made it easy. And the last thing I'll say is that, our single axis tracker that we had designed, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. But Array Technologies, Ron Corio came out with this new passive stow feature. And I was like, I can't lie. Like if my customers came to me and said, hey, how does your tracker compare to their tracker? I'd be like, their tracker's better. Like they have passive stow. It's going to be safer. It's a more structurally sound and reliable solution. And because I'm not a liar. So I like, that was another big kicker where I'm like, this is a good time because I don't want to lie to people. Like we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to rethink how we're doing our single axis tracker. Arrays is the better solution right now, the safer. It's if I was spending my family's money, I wouldn't have bought a PV hardware tracker. I would have bought an Array Technologies tracker. So that was also another good reason for me to say, like it's time to part ways.
How long was the run? So you guys PV tracker, you got this partner, you're slugging it out. How long do you slug it out?
Yeah, so we started PV hardware, I think we started in 2012 or 2011.
Okay, so you bought the name in 2007, but you didn't actually start hitting the ground running.
No, we didn't even start a business plan. Like this was just like buddies talking about, hey, someday this, that. Plus I wanted to, I'm a big fan of taking action. If you come up with an idea, take action. Don't just let it settle. Like, no, start taking action. Even if you chip away a little bit every day, once a week, once a month, you chip away, you can really execute on some of your ideas. And so I've always done that. Like if I have an idea or if there's something that I'm really interested in, I take action. So that was that. We had that, it was probably after a Giants game. We're at Greens, whatever. We're like talking and it's like, what names? And we threw out a bunch of names and, but PV hardware is the one that stuck.
And so you guys get that rolling in 2011, 2012, and how long, where do you get it to? And when do you ultimately say, I don't want to do this anymore? You've stolen my passion.
Yeah, they, I don't even know how many years it was, but at the time, Mike and we had bought a pile driver. And we bought the pile driver so that we could do our own pile load testing. And so I was kind of heading up that aspect of PV hardware, doing the pile load testing. And, I said, hey, we, this will be a good time for us to, leave PV hardware. We'll get some of our, we'll get our money. I'll go ahead and take over the pile driver. And, Mike had another opportunity to do another racking company. And, we didn't have any non-competes or anything like that. So, we just got after it. And
so like 2, 3 years, 4 years, where did you guys get it to?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look and see, but we were, the company was growing. We were doing more projects. We were in the middle of delivering a project with McCarthy. McCarthy was one of our best customers, and we were doing a lot of projects with McCarthy. We also, some of the designs that we had, they were using them. Our partners were out of Spain, and they were doing projects. Overseas in Dubai and South Africa. And so, they had some designs that they were running through the PV hardware name. So yeah, I don't know what our total volume was, but something said, I think we're like around 25 million, something like that.
So it's a nice size company. It gets untenable for you. And do you look back on that? So then you go kind of headlong into the pile drive, and do you look back on that and you're glad you left, or do you wish you would have stayed?
So glad I left.
Why? Help other entrepreneurs know, because you chose not money but joy. So what's the?
Yeah, I mean, it was miserable, and you have to be fully vested in what you're doing, especially in the kind of products and services that we're selling. Is like, I didn't ever want, to be on the side of the fake it till you make it, because I'll tell you, there's a lot of companies out there that sold a lot of products that that failed. And I mean, you got to realize at the time we were selling our products, we were giving them 20-year warranties. That was standard. And so, nowadays, a company's giving you a warranty and they are praying that it gets out of that period without them having to put another dime into it.
And then, so take me through the rest of your career. So somewhere around 2000, we're going to guess around 2016, you go by pile driver and you're doing solar testing.
Yeah, PV Hardware. I left PV Hardware in 2015.
Got it.
And then after 2015, I was working full-time with our pile drivers, doing pile load testing and training new operators on how to be a pile driver. I got to work with some of the greatest companies. I got to, which was awesome. I loved the DG projects in the Valley, working for farmers. Those are my favorite customers. Ag customers those are my favorite. And I've never had a bad experience working for an ag customer. And I'll even go another step and I'll say 9 out of 10 times I become buddies with them and end up having a meal at their house with them. They end up bringing us whatever it is, like whether it's almonds or fresh fruit, or I did this one job in Vail, Oregon, which was a cattle ranch, and they specialize in, birthing like yearlings or whatever. Like they birth, they have a bunch of small cows, whatever. What are calves? It's a calf operation. There it is. So he's a calf operation, but like anytime I would bump into Steve, he's like, "Hey, you want a steak?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." And so, I mean, you become friends with them, and they love it because solar is providing them with so mmany benefits, and not just the power. With some of them, like I'll tell you, for Steve's project in Vail, Oregon, he did a 25-year lease, and he's like, "Sean," he's like, "the checks that we get for the next 25 years more than covers all my ranch's water costs." And he's like, "That's the bill that I hated the most because it would fluctuate and it would stress me out." And he's like, and he's going to pass his ranch down to his son, like it was passed down to him, like it was passed down to his dad. And he's like, he's covered for the next 25 years. He doesn't have to worry about that bill. Like all of the water is covered. And the best part is it was the worst part of their ranch. It was the part where the cattle would get caught up in it because there was all these badgers and squirrels, and it was just a bad area, and like the water would collect there. So that's one thing that people don't realize is like a lot of these ag sites that we do, they're not giving us the best land. They're giving us the land that they hate the most. They're like, "I hate that piece of land. It causes me so many problems. If you can go in there and grade it and make it nice and put in solar, and now you're going to pay me for it, where do I sign up?" And that's another big thing is that like that Vail job, every ranch in that vicinity, they would pull up on us and be like, "Hey, how do we get the same deal that Steve got?" And I'm like, I don't do those kinds of deals. We just install it. He's like, "Well, who should I call?" It's like, so everybody, they all want it because they all know it's like, a 25-year lease. It's like, I always tell people, what if I told you I could sell you an apartment building with 50 units that are filled with 50 of the best tenants that will pay you for the next 25 years. And they all have the best credit. Would you do it? Like everybody would say yes. Yeah. Heck yeah. I want that.
So you're definitely long on solar. I want to ask some questions on that. But so you were advising for JB Solar, business development, and then you've worked for RPACS. So you've worked for a lot of the bigs on all different sides of the house. And now you started in 2023 Core Builders. So just tell us what Core Builders does, and like, is this the apple of your eye, or it seems like PV hardware was kind of the apple of your eye? What's your staple statement in your career?
I'll say PV hardware was a dream that we did, and it had not the result that I had hoped for, but I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot. I have no regrets at all. If we picked different partners, it probably would have been a different outcome. But again, that's part of my journey. You learn your lessons. And so, Core Builders is it's a great story. I left J&B, or Josh let me go, and I was looking at my kind of the next things that I was going to do. I started signing a lot of commission agreements, and working with some of the best companies in the industry that I really cared about, and they wanted my help. And then the team that I had helped build at J&B, the two leaders of that team came to me and they're like, "Hey, we're miserable. Like, why don't we just do this ourselves?" And I said, "Okay, well, guys, I love you, but it's a lot." And again, like, I can show you my business plan because I already had a business plan for a solar installation company. But I mean, here's what it's going to entail. And we chopped it up. We talked about it. And they said, "We're in. We'll do it." And I said, "Okay." And so we pulled it all together and we launched at the end of 23. We had a great year last year. We achieved all of the results that we had planned to. And this year has been a tough year. We're still on plan. But it's, the election definitely, put a lot of developers are like kind of have a wait and see mentality. One of the biggest firms, Q-Cells, they went through, a lot of projects being put on hold. There's another firm that we really enjoy, Amoresco. They decided to just put everything on hold for Q1. They're just like, "Yeah, we're not going to do anything in Q1." So you had a lot of people, a lot of good companies kind of take a wait and see it, because you got to mix in the tariffs. You're mixing in like what's going to happen with the IRA. All these things are kind of starting to solidify. And so I'll see things are going to settle out. Well, there's going to be consolidation in our industry. I think the good companies with sound business plans that are profitable, they're going to survive. The fake it till you make it, they're going to crash and burn. Like there's no room for that anymore. And
got it. And so you guys are doing everything? Foundations, rack and pile?
Yeah, we do foundations, racking, and mods. But again, we're very selective. And I know you and I have talked about this before too, that saying no is like more important than saying yes, because it's easy to say yes. The hard part is when to say no on certain projects. And unfortunately, but fortunately, we've said no to some things. And, I had one customer the other day who was, we were talking about the mobilization payment, and he's like, "Yeah, we're going to pay that in net 60." And I'm like, we're going to be done with the project in like 45 days. So we're not going to receive a penny until after we're completely done with the project, and you only let me invoice you once a month. So I won't do that. So
yeah,
we passed on that.
Can I ask who that was?
No, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, it's more common than not. Okay, and so things are going good with Core, and you guys will survive through it, or are you worried that it's in 2-3? Yeah,
I'm not worried. We're fine.
So the solar is going to keep getting built into the future, even past. If this administration shuts it down,
run the numbers. It's the lowest cost way to generate power. Like when you strip all the subsidies away, because oil and gas gets subsidies, coal gets subsidies. Like subsidies are going to everybody. Solar's getting it, wind's getting it, coal's getting it, oil, gas, everybody's getting it. When you strip away all the subsidies, and if you just go, mano y mano, or, solar is the least costly, the lowest cost to produce energy. So
even the nuclear?
So,
it's okay if you don't know. I don't know. I always thought nuclear was the
thing
answer.
is, I saw a report. So I saw a report, and we have a retired nuclear plant in the SMUD territory called Rancho Seco, and their initial cost of building it and fueling it, and the amount of money it was going to cost to refuel it and re-upgrade it was that they decided to mothball it because it was going to be too costly, and there was less expensive ways to get that generation. But again, some of these new nuclear plants, like in Europe, they've got these new, smaller, more easily deployable units. I haven't seen all the pro formas on that, but one of the things that I think we're going to see more of is people doing off grid, because there's been legislation passed in a bunch of these different states, kind of penalizing you if you have solar. The utilities want to get more money in the door, and they're penalizing you if you'd previously installed solar. They feel like you need to be paying more, like a usage, because of the infrastructure that normal ratepayers are paying for. You are not, because you're with your solar and the way that they're doing the net metering. So anyway, residential solar is under attack. What I see is that there's going to be a boom with people doing off grid, where you'll still have your utility, but you'll be able to do another panel and run some of your other circuits off of an off-grid system, or you run, you have your battery backup to your normal house, and then, you charge it, and you'll be able to do point shaving. So that's a thing that you don't hear a lot of people talk about. But if you put a battery on your house, you can charge it in off-peak times, and then you shut down your connection to the grid, and you run off your battery in peak times. So then you don't pay the higher rates during peak.
Just for the lay person, and I'm one of them. I know what a AA battery is. I know what a car battery is. What does a freaking house battery look like? Is it like a body? How big are these?
Yeah, just look up Tesla Powerwall. They make a pretty.
That's what those are. Those are the batteries.
Yeah, and so I've always called it point shaving. I've heard it referred to as that, and you charge off peak and use it so that you're not paying those. Right now I think PG&E is like got 4 tiers, depends on what program you're on.
Okay, so you're a man of many talents. I took a few notes here. So bias for action, deep relationships, and I think there's a theme of resilience for you. There's you've worn many hats, figured out many things, launched many businesses. You're running X number of FTE revenue company now. For somebody that's listening to this and they want to end up where you have ended up, what would your guidance be to the young and aspiring? I'm thinking of a foreman that one day wants to run something or lead. What's your wisdom?
Relationships are, I look at everything great in my life has come through amazing relationships. And so, be a good person, be supportive, work hard, be honest. I know it's kind of, but I look at it and I go I would have, if I wasn't who I was, I wouldn't have met all the people that have helped open doors for me. And again, I open doors for everybody. So it's also what goodness you put out, you will receive. And, but also though, I've been passionate. If you don't like your job, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, if you get up every morning and you're just I hate this, you're not in the right role. And again, you got to make money. You got to, be able to, support your family. I get that. But again, with our crew, I can legitimately say everybody on our crew, they enjoy what they do. And if you don't, we will figure that out. And then you probably won't be working there anymore because we don't need it. We want to, this is a family type of operation. We, of course there's stressful times and, but everybody's enjoys what they're doing. Everybody has a say. We come up with what our, the mission is and the schedule surrounding that mission, and everybody gets on board. And if you don't, then, whatever, there's plenty of opportunities elsewhere. But that being said, I think good people attract good people. And I think bad people attract bad people. So surround yourself with people that are good and that make you feel good and that pump you up, don't drag you down. You're going to have success, but also finding your passion. How did you get into fencing? What made you decide fencing was something you were passionate about?
I was born in this mess, man. I was, I'm third generation. So it was, father's business. I didn't really have a passion for it necessarily. I just watched him. I thought I always say he did all the right things wrong or the wrong things right. And I thought it would be really cool to see what we could do if we, egotistically did all the right things right. And, I think what keeps me inspired and what I'm passionate about is deep purpose, and our business exists to, provide middle-class wealth. And I think the fence industry is just a really good place for people to come start from the bottom and work their way up. They don't necessarily have to be a senior leader to be making a nice six-figure situation. So it's fun for us. I view our company as a labor provider by way of fence. And it's kept me chugging along.
Yeah, one thing, when we were talking about you getting, what are your IRA wages that you're paying on those fencing jobs? IRA.
When solar. You got to be, I think it's a lost leader. So people listening to this might get confused, but ironworkers in California, ironworkers laborers in California, Chicago, Pennsylvania. The full ticket's $100 an hour. But I think they're getting 50 of it, and then 50's going to the government. 50's, 20, 30, 40 goes to the union, to 10, 20 to the government and all. But it's a hefty package. But that drops down. If you go to Southern Illinois, the full package is probably 30, 40. So yeah. There's good wages.
No, they're great wages. We've hired some younger guys, 18, 19 years old. They're used to making, $14, $15 an hour, and we get them an IRA job, and our labor, full package is around $45 an hour. And they're like, where's this been? And it's like, guys, save your money. Don't think that this is the new lifestyle. Like, live like you're making $20 an hour, put that rest away, to put down on a better truck that's going to be more reliable. Like, don't just think all of a sudden now this is my new life, because easy come, easy go,
Amen, man. Amen. Well, is there anywhere I have I have a few closing questions that we hit on one of them. Is there anywhere you wanted the conversation to go that we didn't go? Anything you want to tell
I wanted to say is like, I had a lot of experiences with, different partnerships, and I love the partnership I'm in right now. I mean, it's like, again, you asked me about, do you regret the PV hardware thing? I'm like, not at all. It helped me learn a lot about the importance of vetting your partners, and that even if they say something, or, you have a document that says they're going to do something, it doesn't mean anything. It's really, you got to know people. And, so I've been very fortunate. My two partners are phenomenal, and we're like the yin to our yang. It's kind of funny, how each of us has a strength that the other one doesn't have. And then ultimately, everybody respects each other, and we've had some tough times, but I'd say we've tested it a couple of times, and we worked it out, and it's like it's been awesome. I look forward to building this business with them, and one of the things is that we're always going to have some of that solar exposure, but we're excited to add on some additional services. We've got a great team. I mean, we've got guys that they can learn anything. I've got these operators that can operate anything. Like, and I don't care what it is. Like, they can operate it successfully. And my one partner, Shane, he's a full-blown diesel mechanic. Like, he basically grew up in a shop, as a 3-year-old, handing his dad and his grandpa tools. And so this, Shane can fix anything. So that's really, it's like, again, there's so many, aspects to this partnership where we all bring something that the other doesn't have, and it makes it awesome. So
that's fantastic, man. What were we going to say?
But I was going to say, the videos that you've been putting out, like the one of your new, is that a new office that I saw?
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. I loved your wall with all the employees up there. Like, I will have that someday. I will. And I'm going to do a shout out video to Kevin and be like, hey, remember when we talked about this? Like, here's all our employees, because everybody deserves to be on the wall. I love that.
It's my favorite. It's a really nice. We came from a dump, and we're now in a nice facility. But that wall is my favorite piece. So I'm glad it spoke to you. I was like, oh, cool. And then I saw that, and I'm like, oh, okay. I see you, Kevin. I see you. It's all about the people, man. I mean,
it is.
That's why I cherish our relationship, and I appreciate you being here. I mean, it's all. Yeah, I mean. It's super cool. So I appreciate the encouragement, but I got to ask you my leadership questions before we close out. Anything else that you want to?
No, we're good. You let me say what I wanted to say. Thank you.
No, man, I appreciate you coming on. So this stumps a lot of people. Like, define good leadership in Sean's words.
I mean, empathy, perspective, being a good listener, following through with what you say, like follow through, even if it hurts, you follow through. It all comes to being a good listener. I feel like that's a big problem I see with some of the leaders I've interacted with, is that they don't listen. They already have it in their head. Things are going to be a certain way, and they don't listen before they speak. They just come out. And I think, collaborating, coming up with a good problem statement, listening to your team, and then, formulating the plan forward, but with input from your team, you're going to have greater success. So that's one of the things. That's one of the things I always try to do. But again, there's sometimes you just got to dictate. Somebody's got to be a general. So, I mean, like when it comes to safety, like it's like, no, like this is it. Like, I don't want to hear any excuses. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is what we have to do. But again, if you want to give me some feedback on how you can ensure that we can deliver this, I'm all ears. But otherwise, I don't want to hear how we can't do it, because we're doing it.
Yeah.
When it comes, with safety. So
yeah, yeah.
We don't mess around. Yeah.
What's your favorite part of the construction industry?
I mean, I love the dirt. Like it's funny. Like growing up with Marilich, we were always in buildings or peaker plants or processing plants, and those are cool and whatnot. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite things is we pull onto a new site, and it's either been graded or not graded, but you pull out there and it's in the morning. It's beautiful. It's like you're the first guy out there. You're not like having to interact with all these other trades. So civil, dirt, love it.
Civil, dirt, loves it. If you could change one thing about the construction industry, what would it be? I
mean, we're gonna do it, but I think it would be awesome if it was a standard that, like my dad at Scott Company. I mean, it was an employee-owned operation. I think that I would love to see every construction company have an employee ownership opportunity associated with it. What is it, an ESOP or something? Yeah. Like, I'm all about it, because I think, especially in construction, because these are the best years of some of these guys' lives. It's their backs, their minds, they're sleeping on a hotel bed away from their families. Like, it's not just money, it's commitment and loyalty. And so why wouldn't they be able to share in the success of the company, as much as anybody else?
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I would love to see that. And I know that, again, though, there's a lot of money that gets spent investing into the equipment and, making the deals with the insurance. And, so I get it. But I do, like, that's our plan. At a certain point, we'll get to a spot where we can do that. But right now, it's so complicated with just all the different things we're doing and, money we're borrowing to get new equipment. And, there's not enough profit. There's not enough profit to go around. It's like we got to get our base built. But once our base is built and we get into some continuity, it's going to be great, and we're going to do something.
It's awesome, man. What makes Sean unique?
Yeah, I'm just passionate. I go all in, or I go all out. So I'm passionate. And if you're in my in my circle, I might be too much, but that's the way it is. Either what I've seen is like people either love me or they hate me. And you know what? How badass is it to be surrounded by a bunch of people that love you? And then the people that hate you, they're not around. So yeah, I wouldn't do it I wouldn't be any other way.
Keep the circle small, man. Are you a reader?
I want to be. I'll show you right here. Here's my buddy just gave me this book.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Elon Musk, got it.
Yeah, because I was a big fan of the Steve Jobs books. I read those, but you'll laugh. This is like my fun book, and you can see I'm like about halfway. But
the name and and claim it game. I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, it's this story of this lady who is like a professional she wins contests, and it's basically, manifestation. If you think it and you believe it, you can make it happen. And I'm again, like, that's what's so been great about my journey, is that, like, I knew I was going to do PV hardware. Like, right when we got in it, I'm like, hey, someday we're going to have our own racking company. It's going to be amazing. We'll be able to do all these things differently, and we don't have to put up with X, Y, and Z. I knew someday I was going to have my own installation company. Same thing. Just like I knew I was going to find my wife. I knew I was going to have a bunch of killer kids. I knew I was going to go to Cal Poly, even though I didn't get accepted to Cal Poly out of high school. It's that positive manifestation is powerful. So anyway, this was a book that somebody kind of referred to me, and I'm like, okay, I'll read it. It's fun.
Good. What's your favorite all-time book? What would be if somebody's listening and they're going to read your book, or the book that was most impactful for you?
So this is going to be funny. And I just was talking about, I got a bunch of books that I really like, but this one is, it really helped me a lot with the relationships that I had in my life. But it's Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And it's a pretty quick read, but it's like spot on. Like,
yeah.
And if you want to be married for a long time, if that's a goal of yours, which it's a goal of mine, you got to read that book, because it's just, and then again, like I need to reread it. I read it probably in 1997, somebody gave it to me and said, you got to read this. And then I read it, my wife and I kind of went through a couple of chapters, maybe in like the, 2007, 2008 range. And we're ready for another little tune up. Nothing bad, but it's good to keep you.
Check back in on it.
Yep.
All right. So this is like not really a lightning round. You can pick one or you can answer all of them. I'll read them twice, but these are dealer's choice. Your favorite famous person, your least favorite famous person, the story of the toughest season of your life. And if you were fictitiously God or the ruler of the world for one day, you're not resource deprived, you have no restrictions, you can do anything you want. What change would you like to see in the world? Those are them.
All right. So, my favorite famous person, that I've met, or that just in general?
Yep. Probably somebody you admire. It can be historical.
I got to tell you, like, I want to meet Joe Rogan. Like, I like Joe Rogan's story. I think he's funny. I got a chance to go to the mothership. We actually went to a solar show in Austin, and that place is cool. And I think he would be interesting. Same with like Elon Musk. I think he would be a fun one. My least favorite is like Kim Kardashian. Like that I don't know. I don't dislike her or whatever, but I mean, if in terms of my least, that would be one. I think, I would say that. What was the toughest season? I'll tell you, when after my dad passed away and we were having these real tough conversations at PV Hardware, I was like I had a panic attack at one point, which I thought was a heart attack, but it was a panic attack. And I just was like, and it was like out of my control. That was the part that kind of threw me off. It was just so much stress that it's like, I'm like, what is going on? So that was tough. And like figuring out how we were going to do the divorce. And then once the divorce papers were done, we got our checks. It was like, I was like free again. It was amazing.
Would you say that season sculpted you? Was that a defining moment for you, or is just something you had to get through?
At that point, it was just something I had to get through, because there might have been a way we could have like salvaged it. But again, like there was just too much negativity that I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And that was the other thing is that, so we got to a point where we disagreed, but in my deal, if I quit, there was going to be like a penalty. So they had to fire me. And so I got to a point where I was just trying to get them to fire me and they wouldn't fire me. And I just finally, we were at Intersolar in San Francisco. And I'm like, look, just fire me. Do me a favor. Just fire me and let me out of this. And they're like, okay, we will fire you. And I'm like,
how long did it go on? How long was it like?
I don't know. I think there was probably 6 or 7 months of trying to get fired.
Dang.
I wasn't like doing just not being full. It was just like, dude, I don't want to be here. Just fire me. And I even brought it up to them and they're like, we're not firing you. You're going to have to quit. So it was almost like, they're like,
it was a game of chicken.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I can ride this out. I mean, whatever.
Yeah. And then if you're God for a day, if you could change anything in the world, what would you change?
It would be cool if everybody could just get along. I mean, if there wasn't, if you could take a provision out of everybody's religion that is anti somebody else's religion, like that'd be cool. Because I'm
coming, dude. I have a plan. That's
really what it is. Like, I don't care what your religion is. Just don't hate on other religions. Like, don't just take the provision out that like this is the only religion and the best religion. Just let everybody kind of have their religions, and as long as they're not impeding on you with their religion and whatever.
Amen.
Everybody get along. Like that's and because I grew up Episcopalian, where my kids go to parochial school. I believe in a faith-based education. I think faith is great in people's lives. I just wish everybody could get along. That's it.
I think they can. They will. One day, a reckoning is coming. I think. I mean, the only thing that threatens humans is humans, right? So we could fix it. I think we could fix it. I believe it. I believe it could be so.
Yeah, I mean, if dogs and cats can like get along, can't we? I mean,
you would think if we could just get a
like
little
they're
smarter.
sworn enemies, and yet you see these pictures of like cats riding on dogs and dogs cuddling with cats, and you're like, see, they can do it. Why can't we?
So listen, he's a little bit of a solar nerd. I did my best to break some things down. I think there might be more questions for those of us that aren't in the solar field than answers. Feel free to put them in the comments and I'll try to get with him. He's a wealth of knowledge. He knows a lot of things. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Shout out to Pineapple Productions for keeping us running. If you liked it, comment, like, subscribe, do all that jazz. If you didn't, fill out the survey. Let us know how we're doing. This is designed to be interactive, and thanks for tuning in. Sean, thanks for coming. Everybody, thanks for listening. Go on and build better. We'll see you next time.